Alright, so this is a short tutorial on how to get started with using Visual Studio Code to build and execute your C++ programs. The first thing you'll need is a trusted C++ compiler. And we're going to be using the binaries one of the binaries that you'll find on this page here. More specifically, we're going to be using the one here called MainW W64 builds. And this one is going to be for the Windows platform. The second thing you're going to need is you're going to need Visual Studio Code, which is going to be the text editor that we'll use to write our code in and compile our code and from our source code into machine code that the computer can understand. And then the last thing we're going to do is within Visual Studio, we're going to install some extensions. So even here where my mouse is hovering, you'll see that one of the extensions that we're going to download is the C++ extension here, where it gives you some IntelliSense to debugging and some other features like syntax highlighting. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing I'll do here is download these precompiled binaries here. And the installation is going to take me to is this SourceForge. It's going to take some time there. It's going to download this executable file. And by the way, I'll put the link to where you would need to download, where you would need to go to download these binaries. But I'll click on this executable file, and I'll click on yes. I'll click on next. Click on next. We'll just go with the preset defaults there. This is the location it's going to install on our machine in the C folder. So click on next. I'll let that download. I'm going to pause the video and then we'll pick back up. It's done installing. We're going to click next and then we'll just click finish. Alright, so now that I have that downloaded, what I want to do now is create an environment variable so I can execute my program. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and get the location of the binary that I need to compile my program. So let's go here. I just open up a folder. I want to click on my C drive. That's because that's where it was installed. Program files, and then I'm going to navigate down to the MainW W64 folder that was installed on my machine. I'll click here, and again I'm going to navigate to the bin folder. And what I'm going to do is copy this address, this location. I'm going to add this to my path variable for my system. How would I do that? I'll go and search for the fastest way would be to search for environment variables. And this is pretty standard on most modern Windows machines. So here, you'll see that it has the edit the system environment variables. Click on that, and we'll click on environment variables. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to my path variable. So here in my view, I have my user for my Windows machine, and I also have the system variables. You may only have the system variables, and it's okay if you add it to the system variables in the path. But in this case, I'm going to add it just to the user that I'm using on this machine. So I'll click path, and I'll click edit. You're going to be careful not to delete any of the previous file paths. I'm going to click on edit. Oops. I'll click on new, and I'll just paste in that file path and click OK. And here I'll click OK, and at this point I've added that location to my path variable so that I can execute my program from within Visual Studio Code or any editor for that matter. So let's go ahead and install Visual Studio Code. Alright, so so the domain name here is to get to Visual Studio Code is code.visualstudio.com. It's going to pick up what system you're on. And so if you're on a Mac, as it say download for Mac, and if you're on a Windows system, let's say download for Windows. And this is the stable build, so you're just going to click on that button here, and it should automatically start downloading. It's going to download another executable file. Once that's down, it's a pretty fast download. You can go and click on that executable file, and that should bring up the installer. Right now it's saying that it's already installed on my machine, but it's going to ask you a few questions. Go ahead and select the preset defaults, and then you should have Visual Studio Code. All right. once you have that installed on your machine, it should look something very similar to what I'm going to show you now here. Let me go ahead and pull up my installation. Actually, let me just close out my documents, close folder. All right, it should look something very similar to what you see here. You should have a welcome screen, and you have some icons to the left here. You may not have the ship icon, but if you click on this, this is going to basically be your folder. It's going to show your folder structure, and we'll get into that in just a second here. You click off of this welcome screen, and so what we're going to do now here is just create a folder that's going to house our program. So I'll open the folder, and I'll just do this on my desktop for now, and I'll just right click and say new folder. And I'll just call this folder example C++, C+ for short, and I'll say select folder. And this folder here is where I'll begin to create my C++ file. And so what I'll do here is I'll create a new file. I can either right click and create a new file, or I can just click on these icons here. This one is for a new file. This one is for a folder. I'll just go ahead and right click in this open area and say new file, and I'll just call this one here sample.cpp. Okay, before I actually move forward, let's go through and let's actually go and install some extensions. And these extensions are going to help us with, it's going to give us some tools here that will allow us to better run our programs. So let's go and do that. All right, so on the right hand side here, there's a number of icons, and you're going to click on this icon that I'm hovering over here with my mouse. It's the extension marketplace. The first thing we're going to install is this extension called C/C++. And I already have it installed, but if you don't have it, you most likely won't have it. You can just go in and search for C/C++, and it should pop up. And the creator of this extension is Microsoft. All right, the second extension you're going to install is one called, it's called Code Runner. So if you just type in Code Runner, and it's this first one here, and you can just go ahead and click on install here. All right, in Code Runner, one of the benefits is that it allows us to easily run our code, whether it's a code snippet or a code, the file that our code exists within. The other benefit is that it gives us these keyboard shortcuts that we can use to execute or run our program. We can stop it and so forth. So you can read more about the details of this extension when you have time. So now that we have those two plugins installed, we're going to go back to our program. We can close out this this view here. Here's our sample program. What I'm going to do is copy some code for a sample program for faster iteration. I'll paste that in. It's a simple hello world program. What I'm going to do here is bring up my terminal. So you can go to view, and you can go to terminal, or you can press Control tilde, which is the key that's under the escape key. Probably the easiest is going to be go to view and go to terminal. Let's click later. And I'm in the folder that I created on my desktop, which is this folder that's open in my view here. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to execute this program. But before I do that, make sure you save the file. So every time you see this file, you see the darkened circle or the filled in circle, it needs to be saved. So Control S or File Save, I would do the trick there. All right, so let's go and execute our program here. All right, before I execute this program, what I want to just make mention of is that I have a bash terminal because I have Git installed on my machine. You may have something that says PowerShell or some other terminal name. It's totally fine. Just make sure that you're on this terminal tab when you execute your code. So what I'm going to do, I could execute my code in two different ways here. So we installed an extension previously called, Code Runner. And there was a command here that I could use. It was Control-Alt-N, I believe it was. So if I scroll down, Control-Alt-N to execute or run my program. Or I can just go ahead and hit this play button. So if I hit this play button, it's going to compile my code. It's machine code and create this executable file. And so here's my hello world that was outputted. So the program is working, and we're compiling our program and we're getting some output in the terminal. All right, so so here you'll see that we have this executable file that we can just click on and run at any time we want, and it would always output hello world. If we're making a change or an adjustment, we would just have to compile our program again, and it would output. It would basically create a new executable file with the latest updates. All right, so that's enough for this video. In the next video, I'll add some variables, and we'll step through the debugger, and we'll talk a little more about how to troubleshoot our programs. All right, take care.